Well, then let's get this party started. Let's get this party
No,
started.
of the small ones.
We'll go ahead and begin this beautiful afternoon here. What are we, March 12th, Gesundheit. March 12th, we'll be reviewing the actual, we'll be taking formal action next Tuesday, March 19th on these items. And Mr. Burrows is back from being recuperating, and he'll be leading the meeting today and reviewing those action items that will be again formally addressed next Tuesday, March 19th at 6 p.m. right here at City Hall.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Before we get into your agenda, Gary Troutman, President and CEO of the Greater Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and Hot Springs Metro Partnership. He's here to deliver his economic development report. Gary, how are you, sir?
Bill, thank you. I'm a little winded. I was in a workshop at Lake Hamilton at 3:33. You can make it here in 27 minutes, but you got to be aware of bus routes. That's all I'm going to say. But thank y'all for having me today. I'd like to acknowledge folks we've got here supporting the partnership. We've got board members David Trice and Austin Coleman from Congressman Westerman's office, Cole on our staff, and Scott Dukes will be coming up just a minute and updating you on the Majestic. As no surprise, been a busy month. We had folks in from Congressman Westerman's staff, new folks he's got in D.C. to introduce themselves. Cole and I are working with a person interested in developing a significant property downtown. Gary has had a meeting with all five of our, and we have had a meeting with all five of our aviation companies. We're getting where we do that every 3 to 4 months now, and proud to tell you, even though they're competitors, they do play nice. We had our 10-county workforce development board. We had site visits to Cadence Bank, Hill and Cox, to name a couple. We had an ACT work-ready community meeting. We are getting closer to our goal there. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a second. I was proud to preside over my first board meeting as president of ADCE, and I'm only planting that seed to tell you we're gearing towards our state conference in August, and I want to hope that you all will each come to that. Mr. Burr and I served on a panel there last year in Little Rock. We've had our Tri-Lakes MPO board meetings, another site visit to Express and Veranda Boats. We hosted the Arkansas District Export Council meeting for the first quarter, and you're going to think I'm being funny, and maybe I am, but when folks come to your office on a Friday afternoon in suits from Northwest Arkansas and Little Rock, and they're not going to Oakland, it's a pretty significant meeting, so we're happy to host that. I think I may have mentioned to you last month, Les Warren and I attended. Eric Jackson was inducted into the Arkansas Business Hall of Fame, one of 4 that night. In April, he'll be inducted to the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, one of only 4 people to be in both, and the only person to be inducted both in the same year. So congratulations to Eric. We met with our friends over in Malvern on the Jones Mill Industrial Park as they get ever closer to that site being site ready. I did not have this in your report, and I apologize because it happened spur of the moment, but had an interview with Channel 11, Rolly Hoyt, and actually commended you all on getting the STR number just right. Seems to work well, and I think y'all obviously put a lot of thought into that, but the numbers have proven to be very accurate. We're gearing up for draft day. We're only about 5 weeks away. That's part of the reason I was at Lake Hamilton. I'm proud to tell you, and you'll want to hear this, 1,900 kids already, 15 schools. We hope to get 4 or 5 more, and we've got about 50 companies. We hope to have about 75 by the time it rolls around. Vicki and I attended the Board of Realtors annual banquet and awards event at Oaklawn. Carol Bales presided over that. Andy Myers, who most of you all know, was presented a Lifetime Achievement Award. Gary and I have been back in the schools at Lake Hamilton with the 8th graders, and we received Cole and Cheryl did a lot of work, Cole in particular. Director Trusty, you asked me particular about this. Took a little bit longer than we thought, but we finally heard back on our accreditation for the Metro Partnership. Proud to tell you we're going to be accredited for about 9 years when it's all said and done. So we're good for 3 more years. joining only Pine Bluff in the state. Our SHRM project advertising for their foundation is working well. We're seeing great numbers at the Department of Workforce Services as far as testing and for resume assistance. We've got a new friend in town, Allison Lewis, who's moved here from Jonesboro, an expert in grants. And Director Trustee, since I'm on it, I'm going to stay with it. You'll be not the least bit surprised to know that National Park was receiving every possible grant that they could for every program they're administering. So kudos to Bill Ritter, Bill Ellis for that. But we had West Central planning in the room, as well as Department of Workforce Services. I want to congratulate Steve Erison, Mary Zunick, everybody involved with Sake Fest and the Cherry Blossom Festival. That was a huge win. Before I bring Scott up, this is one of those times where this is a February report, but we're almost halfway into March. So I feel remiss if I don't tell you, just last week, Dr. Jack Porter and our Army-Navy team had folks in from all over the country, mainly D.C., talking about the Army-Navy Hospital. A lot of steps obviously need to be taken, but something I failed to do last night at Quorum Court, I want to recognize in particular Austin and Congressman Westerman's office. They are playing a huge part, as I think we all knew they would before we get to any conclusion with his office this in D.C. and being located as he is next to the property. And only because, again, time, Hyperfiber, we had a big press conference just the other day. I'll remind you, that is our 5th broadband company in Hot Springs in just the last 6 years. So I've got other things, but I'll save those for the March report. I would like to, while Scott is coming up, something you all know, the streets are full. Half of Texas and half of Oklahoma are here on spring break, and the state basketball championships went well this past weekend. St. Patty's Day parade coming up, and then of course Arkansas will be on spring break along with the other half of Texas and Oklahoma next week. I'll turn it over to Scott for a Majestic update, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Sorry I hadn't been able to be here the last couple of meetings, but I'll fill you in, what's happened over the last couple of months. Not sure what Gary has shared, but we had, going back to the beginning of November, where we had a prospect come in toward the site. We took him up to Northwoods and showed him around Cedar Glades. And this is a group that specializes in hospitality, specifically in resort communities. Kind of base camp type settings, some ski resorts, and so we've started down that path with them. He requested, our contact there runs the company. He requested more hospitality information, city, county, sales tax information. We provided that. He came back, requested more information. We've sent that in the last few weeks. Our committee hopes to schedule a Zoom meeting with him here before our next update with you, to follow up with him again. As one of our committee members said, we're trying to be pleasantly persistent with him. This is the one site that we're working on. They've got numerous projects working, so we don't want to be a pest, but we do want to stay on the radar. And so we feel like this particular group, the principal there has ties to Hot Springs, has visited Hot Springs, loves the town, and I think would really like to do a project here, and is working with his hospitality team to get them on board. So we feel really, I'd say we're optimistic about that, but at the same time, we are working to raise some private money to create renderings to articulate our vision, the vision of both our committee and the community, stakeholders that we visited with. So that's kind of a shared vision that's come together, and we feel like in order to gather local excitement, local support, we'll need to have something that we can show to people. So we are cultivating a local investor list, as well as working to create these renderings in case this prospect doesn't work out. So we don't want to get 6 months down the road with him and for some reason it not fit with their team and then scramble to do that. So we are actively working on kind of a plan B. But this group, their capability, their track record of these type projects, their ability to run it is appealing. but it's also an attractive concept. But one thing that really appeals to us is they are talking a lot of equity and not much lending need. So especially in today's environment, that would be very important. So again, that's the option that we're pursuing. It's going to be a big project and a large investment, so we do expect it to take some time, but feel optimistic there and just proud of the work that our committee's doing. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from individual directors? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Gary, does that conclude that report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I thought he said Cole was going to have a report
Cole, did
about
you have a-
downtown.
I couldn't say anything better than they did.
Okay, well, moving right along, we'll move into your consent agenda. The first item is Resolution R-2446, a resolution acknowledging receipt of the City of Hot Springs financial statements for January 2024, and our Finance Director, Karen Scott, will present. Karen?
Yes, thank you. The monthly financial statements are issued to keep city management and constituents apprised of the financial condition of the City of Hot Springs. The January 2024 financial statements will be linked to your board action request, and staff recommends acknowledging the January 2024 financial statements.
Any questions of Karen? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, consider Resolution R-2447, a resolution authorizing the filing and acceptance of the 2024 Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act Implementation Project Grant administered by the Department of Justice, Office of Community Oriented Policing Services, and Chief Harvington is here to present that item.
Thank you, sir. The Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act program funds are used to improve the delivery and access to mental health and wellness services for law enforcement officers and their families through implementation of peer support, training, family resources, suicide prevention, and other promising practices for wellness programs. Good mental and psychological health is just as essential as good physical health for law enforcement officers to be effective in keeping our community safe and free from crime and violence. The Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act program supports efforts to protect the mental health and well-being of law enforcement officers. Unfortunately, the stress of officers' work and the stigma often associated with seeking assistance for emotional and mental health issues have led to negative consequences such as divorce, alcoholism, injury, and even an increase in suicides across the country. The Hot Springs Police Department recognizes the daily stress created by the profession of law enforcement and the need to provide for mental health and wellness to its staff. In 2022, HSPD began a wellness outreach initiative and created a wellness unit made up of staff members that receive specialized training and provide assistance to fellow staff members who may need assistance with counseling services, education about job-related stress, suicide awareness and prevention, training, critical incident debriefs, and assistance with personal matters that might affect their job performance. If approved by the board, HSPD intends to apply for funding to support annual wellness checkups with a mental health professional, support services for staff and family members, future training for wellness unit members, suicide prevention and awareness training for supervisory staff, and potentially other items. There is no fund matching requirement for this grant. If approved by the board, the application will be made by April the 30th of 24, and the awards will be announced on October 1st of 24. The grant solicitation is included in your packets, and I would answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of the chief?
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you.
Next, we have considered Resolution R-2448, a resolution approving the purchase of 2 residential rear-load collection vehicles from River City Hydraulics, Inc., pursuant to the Cooperative Purchasing Program through Sourcewell. This is in the amount of $478,684.28, and our Solid Waste Director, Samantha Jones, is here to present. Samantha?
Thank you. We're requesting board approval to purchase 2 residential rear-load collection vehicles through Sourcewell. These will replace units 9343 and 9344, which are both 10 years old. The total purchase price is $478,684.28.
And is included in the 2024 budget.
Any questions? Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. The ones that are being replaced, and they are going to be sold?
They'll go to surplus, yes.
And is there any estimate how much they could bring in?
That I'm
at
not
10
sure.
years?
They typically bring in 15 to 20,000. Most
Okay.
of those after 10 years of having that, we'll just call it garbage, you know, it corrodes the steel. So there's a lot of work that has to go back into them to rehab them. So, but we do get $15,000-$20,000 for them for a lot of the parts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is consider Resolution R 2449, a resolution approving the purchase of a commercial front-load collection vehicle from River City Hydraulics, Inc. pursuant to the Cooperative Purchase Program through Sourcewell in the amount of $387,402.62. And again, Samantha.
Yes, again, just requesting board approval to purchase one front-load collection vehicle for commercial. This truck is used to service commercial customers throughout the city. So any type of business that has a dumpster that has a weekly service, this is the truck that they will use. This will replace Unit 9427, which is 10 years old.
Any questions on this resolution? Thank you.
Next is consider Resolution R 2450, a resolution approving the purchase of a Bobcat skid steer loader from Hug and Haul Equipment Company pursuant to the Cooperative Purchasing Program through Sourcewell in the amount of $62,804.14. And again, Sam.
Yes, again, just requesting approval to purchase the Bobcat steer loader for our transfer station. Sticking with Bobcat, we already have attachments that will work with this unit, so we don't have to purchase new attachments. Again, it's through Sourcewell. The unit that it's replacing is unit number 9090, which is a 2009 model Bobcat. And we've been told by Fleet that it's beyond repair.
Any questions from the board? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have consider Resolution R 2451, a resolution approving a work order number 23A10991-2 to the master agreement for professional services between the City of Hot Springs and Garver LLC for the alternatives analysis for taxiways D, K, and L reconstruction and the design for taxiways A, B, and C reconstruction at the Hot Springs Memorial Field Airport. And Don Rollett, our airport director, will present. Don.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This resolution is for a work order with Garver for analysis of one portion and design of the other. It's actually two design projects in one. The first one with DK and L is an analysis for alternatives for that taxiway. It's a taxiway that gives direct access to the runway. And the FAA has, over the last years, looked at trying to change that so that you require the aircraft to make a turn, and that way they don't accidentally pull off onto the runway with that direct access. So DK&L is for that. It's going to be looking at alternatives for a future construction situation with that. The design for taxiway Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie reconstruction, we've had in there that we're going to have to resurface taxiway Alpha, and in doing so, we want to do the design to move part of that taxiway closer to the runway. That will allow us to have building space in the future for hangars. Taxiway Bravo is not in compliance with the FAA. It was designed at an angle that would correct that and then resurface those areas. So this is the design going up to 90% designed in preparation for those projects. And this is a 90-10 split between the FAA and the state. There's no local requirement.
Very good. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have considered Resolution R 2452, a resolution adopting the 2023 Garland County Hazard Mitigation Plan for the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, and Deputy City Manager Denny McFate will present.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows, members of the board. Certain areas of Garland County, the city of Hot Springs, are subject to periodic flooding and other natural and man-caused hazards with potential to cause damages to people's properties within these areas. Under the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, United States Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, requires that local jurisdictions have in place a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan as a condition of receipt of certain future federal mitigation funding after November 1st, 2004. To assist cities and counties in meeting this requirement, Garland County has initiated development of a countywide multi-jurisdiction hazard mitigation plan for all jurisdictions in the county, specifically all cities and the school districts. This was passed by the Quorum Court on February 12th, 2024 for the county's approval. Federal disaster funding requires municipalities to have a hazard mitigation plan in place and to be reviewed and revised every 5 years. Therefore, staff's recommendation is to adopt the 2023 Garland County Hazard Mitigation Plan as presented.
Any questions? Director Garcia.
Was there anything considered that may need to be added to it for the city?
We had input in it from the
Oh,
beginning.
okay,
So we
okay.
put our part into the plan.
So
on
it's
Mountain
already
Pine.
included.
It's already in,
Okay.
it's already been to FEMA, they've approved it. It's been approved by FEMA and returned back to Garland County. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
I understand, Mark. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next, we have considered Resolution R 2453, a resolution approving the purchase and installation of certain facility perimeter fencing and gate equipment at the Community Resource Center located at 109 Hobson from Green Family Holdings LLC, doing business as J-Core Construction, pursuant to the TIPS Cooperative Purchase Program in the amount of $67,850. And our Public Works Director, Ron Seavright, will present. Ron?
Good afternoon. This is for a perimeter fence around Community Resource Center. It's going to be constructed of treated wood most of the way around, and then it'll have wrought iron gates, automated gates for the drives, and also at the access points will also be wrought iron gates that can be locked.
Okay. Any questions of the board?
I guess maybe this is for when, no, this is on consent, right? Is this a opaque fence? Is this a privacy fence, or is this
Privacy
just
fence.
a privacy? And how tall?
It'll be 6 foot.
6 foot? And it'll be the entire perimeter, like from the sidewalk
Yes, ma'am.
in? Okay. Thank you.
There are 2 or 3 entrance points, so it did drive up the cost a little bit because we'll have gates at each one of those as well that will be workable. But this will take care of the driveway, and Ron, was there 2 or 3 walking entrances?
There's a double walk-in entrance and a single walk-in entrance on the other side.
And
on
then the
Hobson
drive.
side.
I still do have my concern about customizing a property that we don't have a management team for yet. I mean, an operating agency.
Certainly,
I mean, that was
certainly.
from the get-go. We'll have an operating agency where half a year, coming up on a year, it won't be long before it's a year, and we still don't have, to my knowledge, unless you've got some knowledge, that we don't have an agency that'll step forward.
Well, I will share with you that there are groups that are forming to have that partnership. They have actually, last week, they were in where'd y'all go last week, Danny? Was it
Fort
Yeah,
Smith.
Fort Smith, and looked at one there. This will probably be a build slow, come out. But the work that we're doing, whether it was the HVAC, the security, the fencing, all of this is work that needs to be done regardless what type of facility it's going to be. So, I feel
And I
comfortable
didn't have a
in
problem with
bringing
the
that to the
HVAC,
board.
because if you rented the building to another tenant of some totally different use, you'd need an HVAC.
Yes, ma'am.
The air conditioner, that, I can see that. The elevator, I can probably see that. But when we start getting into the church operated for 50 years without a fire suppression system, and the only reason that fire suppression system is needed is if people are sleeping in there, or if you're feeding a certain amount of people. And the only reason the church operated without a privacy fence for many years, and the only reason we'd need a fence is if we're using it for, the new tenant may love to have it open if we don't get an agency to operate it.
Well-
And the touring of other facilities is admirable and awesome, and, you know, why start from ground one? But we are talking about a community that is more than 3 times the size of us, who is also doing some changing to what they are doing. They've been operating this now for, I believe it's 7 years, and they are making some changes with what they were doing.
I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, thank you.
Next, we have to consider Resolution R2454, resolution approving the purchase of traffic signal equipment from Temple Inc. pursuant to the ACA 1458-104 in the amount of $149,506.15. And again, Ron.
Staff will be upgrading 3 signalized intersections. The first one is Reserve and Central. Then we're going to do Cornerstone and Central, and Malvern and Convention at Bridge Street. The one here on the corner of Malvern and Convention also operates, that same cabinet operates Bridge Street, so we want to upgrade that and get a little bigger camera. The equipment that we use, in order for it to be synchronized and coordination, has to be all the same. So that's why we use the Siemens equipment, and that's why we're using a sole source.
Okay, any questions of Ron? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. You said this was going to be a better camera. Is that what the main upgrade is?
The whole cabinet, the whole workings inside, the internal components, the cabinet, the cameras, everything's going to be upgraded.
And does that include license plate readers, or is that separate?
This is
That's
more of a traffic cabinet that operates the traffic signal.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is your first item under new business, Resolution R2455, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 353 Mount Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. And our Chief Building Official, Mike Scott, is here to present the item. Mike?
Thank you. 353 Mound. This building was formerly a church that was sold to new owners in 2020. The owners were notified of the condition of the structure in 2022 and 2023. Following the latest notification in October of last year, the owners requested the city raise and remove the structure. The owners then submitted signed and notarized copies of the demolition waiver to our office. A title search indicates Mr. Cornelius and Mrs. Medley are the owners on record, and there are no other interested parties to this property. Both the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code and the Property Maintenance Code define unsafe structures. This structure has significant foundation damage, which is visible in the cracks in the brick facade. The back wall of the structure is blowing out, which shows signs of the exterior support walls collapsing. Additionally, there is rotten and missing siding, soffit, fascia, and gutters. Given the condition of the structure and the willingness of the owners to have this structure removed, we are requesting the board condemn the structure for the purpose of demolition.
Good. Any questions of Mike? Director Garcia?
Thank you. In our packet, will you include current tax status on property tax? I assume since it's no longer a church, it went back to property tax.
Yes, ma'am. I'll make sure that's in there.
And any estimate of what that lien would be, include or estimated cost, that whatever the estimated cost is what the lien would be, right?
Yeah, we usually don't put it out for bid until after y'all condemn it, but I can probably get somebody to give me a rough estimate. Yes, ma'am.
Well, as much experience and all that you've had to do for us.
I have a pretty
I'm
good
sure
educated
you've
guess,
got
yes, ma'am.
You're, without going to extra trouble, I think
Yeah.
your
Okay.
educated estimate would be good.
All right. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is consider Resolution R2456, a resolution approving an agreement with IPS Group, Inc. to provide certain integrated smart parking technology, equipment, and services, approving a budget adjustment and for other purposes in the amount of $304,143. And again, our Deputy City Manager, Denny McFate, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows, members of the board. A request for proposal was duly advertised and issued to purchase certain parking equipment and technology for the City of Hot Springs downtown area, with 7 vendors responding. Based on a rating and ranking of the respondents, IPS Group of San Diego, California was ranked the highest. By approving this resolution, the board would also be approving a budget transfer from the board's special appropriation fund in the amount of $304,143,000, which is the original proposed amount, which it includes a contingency of $25,450 for any additional kiosk or related equipment if needed. Additionally, this includes 7 months of fees, support, monitoring, etc., in the amount of $21,553 to get us through the remainder of the year. Staff recommends awarding the bid to IPS Group of San Diego for the purchase of certain parking equipment, software, and maintenance costs, including fees, for a total amount of $304,143. Also included in your packet, the recently completed parking management implementation plan that was presented to us by Walker Consultants offers a detailed series of recommendations and outlines the footprint of where we would be considering paid parking for downtown. That'd be in your packet as well. This system, their proposal is 25 kiosks, which will be spaced out about 10 parking spaces each. It also gives us the coverage of a mobile app for mobile app parking. So you'll have a choice of using a kiosk when you park or using an app service when you park. It'll also include a license plate reader for one vehicle and then 2 handheld units for license plate reading for PD to be able to walk around and scan license plates to catch those that are in violation of parking.
Any questions of Danny on this resolution?
I have one.
Yeah, Director Dobson.
What is the DBA name of this company? Is it like on an app, on their app, what would it say?
Do
I mean,
you remember?
I'm not familiar with that
Smart
one.
Park.
Smart Park, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm familiar with them. Okay, cool, thanks.
Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. In the special appropriation fund mentioned for transfer, is that one of our restricted funds?
If you recall, we had about 960,000 that was set aside for parking. And this transfer is
that's what-
coming from that general
Okay.
fund account into this one.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the terminology was the same as I referred to it as one of the restricted funds for
Yes,
that
ma'am,
purpose.
it
Yeah.
is.
This would go into the parking department's general fund so we can spend those funds for these activities.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could point out one thing. Members of the board, as you're reading your packet, you'll see an attachment B. That's the unit pricing for all of these components that we're talking about. That will ultimately be finalized when there's a site visit. The police will be involved with that site visit. And so you'll see the kiosk, as Denny was talking about. Hopefully, over time, we'll get people used to using the app, and we can not replace those kiosks as they go by through attrition.
Yeah, their proposal, thank you, Brian, their proposal was 25, but once we walk it with them and agree and all come together on it, we may need like 21, so we won't maybe need as many, or it may end up being 26. So that was the reason we asked for a contingency to be able to adjust it if we need to in the field.
All right. Any further questions?
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
Would this also address the parking deck?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll cover it.
It will
Thank
be
you.
a counter system on the parking deck. It will count cars going in and count cars coming out, and there'll be a display outside the front entrance of the parking deck that tells you how many spaces are available.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Very good.
Last item on your agenda is consider Resolution R2457, a resolution awarding a construction management at risk, CMAR, contract to Max Foot Construction Company LLC for the construction of the Davidson Drive wastewater treatment plant improvements and UV disinfection upgrades. This is in the amount of $34,563,000. And our project manager, Todd Pillar, is here to present that item. Todd?
Thank you and good afternoon. Yeah, this is our contracts B and C. You know, I use numbers and letters. So if you remember, contract A you approved was the Gulf Basin Pump Station that we awarded. B is the Davidson Drive internal, the process equipment upgrades we need to do to meet our CAO. And then the package C is our upgrade to our UV disinfection. And again, as Bill said, the contract amount will be in $34,563,000. While we were working with Max Foot, we had some value engineering items that came up. Their original estimate was $37,837,000, and we were able to eliminate items and redo items for $3,274,000, getting us to our price of $34,563,000. Like I said, the B had all kinds of things inside the wastewater treatment plant. In your packet, you'll see the whole description of those things. And package C is for the UV disinfection. That takes us from 48 MGD to 75 MGD going to Lake Catherine. Construction will take approximately 2 years. And this project will be funded out of the board-approved 2022 wastewater bond issues. And also, the board approved an ARPA grant that we received for $5 million. So that helps a lot on the budget.
Very good. Any questions?
Mayor, just want to clarify, when Todd mentioned that we got to that 3.4 plus million, that was deduction. That was not an addition.
Right. Yes, yeah, 3.274 was a deduction. Mm-hmm.
Any further questions of directors? Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes your agenda for next Tuesday night.
All right. Well, daylight saving time's upon us, so next Tuesday night, looks like we'll be able to send everybody home. The sun will still be out.
Promises.
We'll just end the meeting before the sun goes down. Then we'll have to reconvene later. All right, there be no further business. Enjoy your afternoon.